Hi everyone, how's everyone doing here today? Just wanted to say thank you for watching, and it's a nice cool afternoon, no sun, and the birds are in full singing mode, so enjoy the chorus in the background. Anyhow, well, news is out. Trump has been indicted, and that's gonna be initiated in a few days, and of course there's a lot of talk about it going on. And that's one of the things I wanted to focus on briefly, and also talk about his recent rally in Waco, Texas, which I'm sure a lot of you already seen and heard about by now. Because there's a few things to cover, and there's a few talks I've been hearing, given recent posts I've been doing. And, well, for starters, what's going to happen? So far he's just been indicted, I believe, for whatever the crime or the charges are, he's entitled to a fair trial. And how's it going to play out? Will he get convicted? And if so, for how long? Or will he be acquitted? I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not about to speculate on it. I'm just kind of sitting quietly watching as everything unfolds and watching the news, both in the mainstream and in the independent media. And we'll play it out. Now, of course, you have the Fox media and figures on the right, all coming to his defense and everything, expressing their outrage. I mean, I heard Lindsey Graham went on some teary-eyed little rant, encouraging people to send him money. Why? He doesn't look like he's living on the soup line. I think he's got plenty of money, so I've spoken about that. I wouldn't recommend sending him a dime. Let him pay for his own legal fees. Of course, the choice is yours. And, you've seen the hypocritical outrage from, Don Jr. of all people. I get it, he's his son, so naturally he's going to come to his defense, but that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is some of this outrage, which has a clear double standard, which I'll get into. So, the one thing I wanted to say is about Waco, and I've mentioned this before, is that in that rally, the big takeaways in short, if you haven't seen it, you're not missing much. It's a lot of the same rhetoric and hate talk and just vitriol, where he complains about all the investigations, criticizes all investigating him, from Stormy Daniels to the Attorney General in New York. I'm blanking on his name right now. And as a result of it, some of them are receiving death threats. And he's also calling it's like an end of the world, or some kind of doomsday that's going to go on if he does get arrested, let alone convicted. Okay, let me point out the obvious, because, some people are saying, oh, the country's going to come to an end. How so? Okay? He is a former president, and he is one man. Now, not to trivialize his existence, but truth be told, this country has been around several years before he was even born. It'll continue to be around several years after that, He thinks it's going to sink into some kind of dictatorship. That was the way he ruled, like a dictator, an authoritarian. So, and I've explained that plenty of times before. If you haven't seen it by now, then I don't know what to tell you. So, no, the country's not going to come to an end. It's simply about accountability, which I've also mentioned in the past, which I like to see it across the board. So for those of you who are talking about, this is allegedly unfair or some kind of witch hunt, let's really break that down. And I'm going to do it in a civil way. I'm not going to go in bashing or name calling. I'm just going to break it down what some of the recent actions are, and also draw the same conclusion. Generally speaking, what is crime? Crime is a choice. Okay, he wasn't framed. Nobody twisted his arms or forced him to do anything. It is based on the choices he made. Okay, let's look at the one that's front and center, the hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. Okay, he committed adultery. It's not the first time. He's cheated on all three of his wives. And is anybody really surprised? Unfortunately, Melania, had to endure the humiliation and, betrayal about that. And I'm not saying this to diminish her feelings, but I think she knew who she was marrying. Not that makes her anger not justifiable, quite the opposite. And that doesn't give him an excuse either, He committed adultery, plain and simple. And any woman out there who's had a boyfriend or husband who's cheated on them knows exactly how that feels and can sympathize with that. But putting her aside, the simple truth of the matter is, he had a choice. He didn't have to, have an affair. He chose to do that. I don't know why, or I can imagine why, but I'm not going to get into his psychology or his narcissism. The simple fact of the matter is he chose to do that. And I know some of the whataboutisms, which I've already heard, which I know some of you voters on the right or conservatives are going to say, like, oh, well, what about Bill Clinton? Well, as I've said before, I didn't give Bill Clinton a pass with Monica Lewinsky. He too made the wrong choice, and he paid the price for it. He was impeached. But mind you, he was not impeached for committing adultery. That's not a legal or impeachable offense. He was impeached because he had committed adultery and lied about it. Trump committed adultery and used hush money, campaign funds, to pay for it. Allegedly, I'll say. Okay? I'll leave it like that. But Michael Cohen, his lawyer at the time, already went to prison, and that makes you wonder why. If there was no crime committed, what is he doing in jail? So it's not a question of the adultery, which is just immoral, it's not illegal. It's the fact that, he tried to cover it up. And what I don't understand is, he's still considerably wealthy. Let's make no mistake about that. I couldn't tell you what his net worth is or his income, but he's acquired a lot of funds over the years, even before his presidency. So why do you have to use campaign funds? Why not use his own funds? I'm sure he has other accounts, maybe a Swiss bank account. Definitely has an account in China that we know about, but we don't want to talk about that, right? Okay, so that's one crime he's been charged with. The other one, the documents at Mar-a-Lago, which the FBI did a search warrant, a legal search warrant, not a raid. Okay? Again, he chose to take documents that he shouldn't have taken. They weren't planted, okay? They weren't smuggled in into his briefcase or whatever carrying item he had. He took a considerable amount of documents. We've been through this already. Now, again, I know what the pivot it's going to be. Well, what about Mike Pence? Or what about Joe Biden? They've been cooperating, last I checked. They had some documents on their possession. Not as much as Trump. Not that I'm saying the quantity makes the crime less. Maybe the scale of it. But the simple truth is that they shouldn't have been in possession of them to begin with. And here's the kicker. The FBI, for a considerable amount of time, asked for those documents to be returned. Trump had every opportunity to do that. All he had to do was just give them back. It was so easy. He gave some back, yeah, but not all of it, and that's what eventually led to the search warrant. So who's to blame for that? What, the FBI for doing their job, or for Trump for not cooperating? For choosing to break the law and not cooperate? He made a choice, okay? And we could talk about, I'm not going to get into January 6th, because there's been no charges about that, but there is the investigation for his meddling into the election by calling Georgia, asking them to find votes, in a means to overturn the election, at least within the state of Georgia. Well, that didn't work out, and he lost fair and square. Don't even waste my time with the voter fraud. I'm not going to get into that. I've done it too many times already. And yes, I still hear about it from time to time, to this day. Guess what? Bottom line, he chose to pick up the phone and make that call and take that action. He chose to try and cheat and rig the election in his favor and give himself an unfair advantage. Nobody twisted his arm. Nobody forced him. Maybe somebody advised him to do it or suggested, hey, you could try this. But in the end, the final decision was up to him, and he made the wrong choice. So, and that's pretty much the simple gist of it as far as that goes. I mean, so some of you are saying, like, this is an outrage, it's a witch hunt. No, okay? Just to give you a basic analogy, which may not measure up to what Trump did, but if I'm driving and I'm speeding, not paying attention to the speed limit or doing it purposely because, I love to drive fast, a cop pulls me over. And he says, hey, you were doing this amount in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. You were over the speed limit. I'm not going to blame the cop. As much as I don't like getting a ticket for moving violations, guess what? Blame myself. Either I should have been paying attention to the sign or just kept it within the speed limit. In that instance, I made a choice, and it's the wrong choice to make. Trump has spent a considerable amount of his lifetime, from scams to breaking laws to doing things to his own advantage. And the worst part is he never faces accountability. And just like he didn't want to accept the election results, to which he started screaming foul, putting out lies about voter fraud, which eventually led to January 6th, which I still say he needs to be held accountable for. And that goes to my other point about some of the rhetoric in Waco, Texas, where he was trying to drum up his base to commit acts of violence. You can't, if you're still a supporter of him, fine. But you can't stand there and watch the video and think to yourself, oh no, he's not doing that. The heck he is. He knows exactly that stirs up the violence. He could be possibly going down for criminal charges, so you know what? He wants to scorch the earth. I believe that's how he worded it at one thing. He wants to drum up as much trouble as he can for no other reason and just take as many people down with him as possible. Okay? And that goes to, as what I said before, if you're one to go out and commit acts of violence on his behalf, you are putting yourself at risk, you're putting others at risk. I'm not talking about, I don't think, your average working class person sitting at home, wearing MAGA hats may do something. I could be wrong, but there are certain other hate groups that support him, certain militant groups that will try and do something. Well, here's something to consider, which I may not have brought up, regarding, for example, January 6th. Who were some of the people that supported it besides Trump? You had Giuliani, you had his lawyer Eastman, if I remember his name, and you had other members of Congress like Josh Hawley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert, tweeting stuff. Josh Hawley with his infamous fist bump in the air and then running like a coward. What did they do as far as taking the country back? Anything? They didn't go into the Capitol. They didn't storm or assault police officers. They didn't grab any weapons or arms or try and take on law enforcement for the sake of stopping the certification of the Electoral College. Why? Because they like to egg people like you on to do it. The supporters, the extremists, who will actually do that. And when the roof falls, when they get killed or arrested, they pay the price, while the others get to walk away scot-free. Trump goes back to Mar-a-Lago, and the others, like I said, Hawley, Boebert, Greene, they go back home. They don't do anything. So now he's trying to drum up, and already like I said before, Stormy Daniels, the one that he had an affair with, she's been getting death threats. The Attorney General from New York has also been getting death threats, and security is on high alert. I imagine both in New York City and as well as in the U.S. Capitol, in D.C. And they should be on alert because, all the warnings in the world, some people are still going to do extreme things. But as I just said, that is futile. That's going to put yourself in a serious situation where you're either going to find yourself in hospital, in prison, or dead. Or a combination of some, depending on how far you go with it. And in this instance, you're looking at Donald Trump, who avoided the draft because he claimed he had bone spurs. So he's not going to take up any arms. He's not going to join the fight. He's going to egg you all on to do that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, what? She's into guns and stuff, obviously. So is Lauren Boebert. You think those two are going to take up arms and join you in the crusade? Go up against the NYPD or the Capitol Police like they even have a snowball chance in hell of doing anything off? What, try a prison break if Trump does get convicted? That's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. So that's why I can't stress enough. Do not go out and do anything foolish. Do not think of your lives. Think of your families. Think of yourself. Don't put your life on the line for a person who's not willing to lift a finger to save himself, except to try and just hustle money, from his supporters to pay the legal bills. Look at, like I said with Lindsey Graham, egging them, send him money. He got himself into these messes. He wasn't framed. He made a choice. You can debate that all you want. As far as the merits of the case go, it's pretty solid. Whether or not it'll lead to conviction, that's a whole nother discussion. But, again, after you watch this with the outrage, do you not sometimes reach a point where you say to yourself, why does he keep doing this? Why does he put himself in these situations? He didn't have to cheat on Stormy Daniels, or at least use campaign funds. He could have just left those documents the way they are, and, if he's losing the election, just accept it like an adult, not try and cheat. He had it so easy. Okay, he lost the election. You had one term. That's one term more than a lot of politicians get to have. Could have just gone home to Mar-a-Lago and lived the rest of his life in peace. He still had plenty of enough funds like that, so, it's not like he'd be living in squalor. Now he's facing criminal charges, and he's, given his narcissism, he's trying to get people riled up, and he's just getting all the outrage. And like I said, some people on the right are doing it. I haven't heard them, trying to drum up threats so far. Although, no, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm sorry, she did. She says, it's going to be the end of the country. Get out of town. What is she going to do besides just shoot her mouth off? She's not going to do anything. She's going to try and push you guys to do it. And if you do that, great. Then you're falling for her scam, just trying to get people riled up. On Fox News, Jesse Waters, he said, well, people should be careful. Why is that? Is he making an open threat? Does he want to see violence? Okay, because I think there should be accountability there, saying things to drum up people to commit acts of violence, to commit crimes on the behalf of Donald Trump. I talked about that before, where I said words matter. Whether you're a media figure or somebody in the political arena, when you say things, they do matter, so be careful what you say. Obviously, Trump's not going to tone down the rhetoric, which is why you guys have to make the right choice. You can choose. You can choose to go out and break the law on his behalf and pay the consequences while he walks away. Or you can choose to safeguard your lives and stand on the sidelines. Okay? If he goes to jail, he goes to jail. That's just the way it goes. But that's all based on a choice that he made. You can keep defending him, or you can express your opinions on the crimes, but as I just broke it down, does it not make logical sense? You can honestly look at me and tell me that he was framed. You can give any whataboutism you want. That's fine, whether it's Clinton or Biden or whatever you decide to throw in there to distract or pivot. But in the end, it doesn't change what he did. That he's paying the price for. And as I just said, accountability across the board. Which goes to my final part from the Waco rally, which I found the most bizarre, is that I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the direct anthem. I only watched a snippet of it because it's just pretty disgusting to watch, to see how, some people in this country have become. And I'm saying that in a sympathetic, rather bizarre way. Again, like I said, I'm trying to keep it civil. I don't want to put people down or dish out insults. But they were doing this I don't know if it was the actual national anthem, but some kind of anthem that Trump claims is the top seller, the highest ranking on Amazon and some other music streaming services, which it's not. People have checked. That's just yet another lie. But they're playing the anthem with visuals of what happened on January 6th in the background. And people are either placing their hand on their heart. I could have sworn some of them were doing the Nazi salute. Are you kidding me? Is that really the type of country you want to live in, where acts of violence is considered a means of, symbolizing or visualizing our patriotism? That's not what America's about. That's not patriotic. That is not even constitutional, not even close. Is that really what you want? Because I got news for you. Eventually, whether Trump goes to prison or not, one inevitability is sure. Just like the rest of us, he's eventually going to grow old and pass on. Just like anyone else does. He's not going to live forever. He's not immortal. And this country will continue to go on without him. And if you're young enough, you'll continue to live on too and, move on to help produce other generations. Is that really what you want to leave as far as a legacy goes, to further acts of violence? Let our country sink into a dictatorship? To be like a fascist state? Because that's what that reminds me of. It's like, some of the violence Hitler used to show and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm making that comparison because it is scary. So if you think of doing the Pledge of Allegiance to visuals of January 6th, which you claim is not an insurrection, it is just some tourist visit, where you got police officers being assaulted, where you got acts of violence, criminal acts occurring, what does that say about you? That's where I say, again, you have a choice not to follow that lead. To say, no, I'm going to say the normal Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag, not to the Capitol being invaded. Is that what you would want for your kids in school? Yes, I've heard a lot about saying that they should have the Pledge of Allegiance back in school. That's fine. But what, are you going to put up posters of January 6th, of rioters, of insurrectionists? Is that the type of America you want your children to grow up in? Because that wouldn't be for me if I had children. Again, it eventually boils down to choices. And your choice is, if you want to keep supporting Trump to the end, fine. At the very least, do it in a non-violent way. You want to protest? That's fine. I'm all for protesting as long as it's done peacefully within the boundaries of the law. You decide to break the law, that is your choice. If you get arrested, in the end, it is on you. You can blame the Democrats, the leftists, or, whomever you want. You can point your finger at anyone you want. In the end, you had a choice. No one's going to force you to go on protests if you don't want to. So, I'm just waiting to see how things play out. Trump dug his own grave, okay? That's on him. That's not me talking arrogantly. That's just stating the simple facts. You can deny it all you want. In the end, he had a choice, and so do you. And I am sincerely hoping you're making the right choice. Not just for country, but just for yourselves. Because I got news for you. Your lives, your families, they are important too. And it's not going to matter much if you're in prison or if life is suddenly cut short because you felt the need to break the law to defend a man who would not do anything to defend you. I really hope you understand. Not for my sakes, for your sakes. So, anyhow, thank you for watching.